Welcome back to a new class. Today we'll be looking at psoriasis, which is an inflammatory skin condition. This is related to autoimmune. Okay, I'm going to explain what autoimmune is. Immune plus inflammation, proliferation of keratinocytes. Like, none of these words make sense, so I'll explain what it is. Autoimmune, first part, said plus equals psoriasis. Okay, so this is the formulation from the medical understanding of what psoriasis is. I'll explain term by term what it means, and then we'll simplify it. We'll go into understanding nature mimicry, how nature looks at hyperkeratosis, which is one of the results of psoriasis. So we'll look at signs, symptoms, how nature looks at skin, ancient civilization, how they looked at skin. And this condition took me almost 3 days to figure out, 3 full days to figure out the cause of it from a somatic or psychosomatic level, which is the level of the mind. Okay, what goes on in the mind that causes this condition? That's what we're going to uncover today. And that's what there is no understanding of it as per now in the current medical system. The current medical system only looks at is an autoimmune condition, right? But what is the cause of the autoimmune condition? Yes, they link it to genes, but again, why does the DNA or why does the genes react in a certain way? How does it happen? And it happens because of the mind, okay? So we'll look at all these levels, understanding what it is first, how it works, the symptoms, what causes and triggers psoriasis, the skin condition, and how we can manage it through understanding ancient civilization, nature, as well as a story of the Allegory of the Cave by Plato. So we'll combine all of these concepts to finally understand how you can help psoriasis. Okay, this is a condition that affects slightly more population in terms of men than women. There's some studies show that there is an equal amount of the high risk or the risk relevance for both men and women, but there are some studies that show there's men who have higher you can say chances of getting psoriasis than women, just slightly. So let's get started. What does autoimmune mean? So this simply means when your cells, immune cells, are confused, okay? WBC, white blood cells. These are the cells that essentially are your defense mechanism, your defense system, okay? These cells, they ensure that any type of bacteria or virus doesn't affect and take over your body and doesn't make you fall sick. So this is your protection mechanism, white blood cells, but they are confused. In an autoimmune condition, they are confused. You'll see psoriasis as like a red, scaly, itchy patch or a cluster of skin cells, okay? Skin cells, which form rapidly around the knees, essentially the joints, so the knees, the elbows, also the hair, and lower back, okay? Hair, lower back, knees, and elbows. This is where you're likely to get psoriasis. This is where the white blood cells are unable to figure out why there is an attack. There is no attack, right? There's a trigger in your environment which your brain realizes as an attack and tells the immune cells, the white blood cells, to go there and save the attack, or essentially to protect your skin. But the white blood cells, they're confused. They don't know what is happening, right? And this confusion is what autoimmune is, okay? So your body doesn't essentially know how to protect itself. What starts happening is white blood cells, they start attacking your skin cells, okay? Or they start telling your skin to build more skin. Because of this, because there is a communication from the cells, a threat communication, build more cells. So this is the skin's understanding. Your skin, it builds layer by layer every month. So there's a layer, there's a buildup of skin cells every month, and essentially the skin sheds. So every day, in fact, there is some layer by layer, the skin cells build up, and after a month, or it's like a continuous process of shedding, essentially. Usually within psoriasis, the skin cells, because there is some danger, there is some trigger, some stress in the environment, the white blood cells goes and tells skin cells to build more, and they build faster now. So the speed of the skin cells being built fast, it happens within 3 to 4 days, which is why there's a cluster of skin cells. And just to imagine, like now I'm going to give you a scenario, right? So you can understand this better. I know it's still a little bit confusing, but I'll try my best to simplify it through a scenario. Imagine you are the king of a castle, okay? So this is your fortress. Just going to draw like a house, okay? This is your fortress, right? And, okay, so you have workers inside this castle who build the fortress up, okay? And they build the fortress up every month because the fortress needs maintenance, it needs a change. There's a continuous maintenance process going on in the fortress, and it happens every month. So the fortress doesn't die or it doesn't collapse, essentially. Just imagine that. You have warriors on the outside of the fortress, okay? There are warriors here who protect and guard the fortress. Imagine them as white blood cells. These guys see from the far that there is a huge attack or an army coming towards them or a windstorm. Okay, so there is a trigger from the external environment that is telling them that there is a certain level of threat. That threat, which basically tells the white blood cells to go to the builders in the fortress to build fast because there is some level of air attack or some level of threat that is going to destroy the fortress, okay? So they need to work hard to build a strong fortress. And there's a speed at which these guys can work. And if they work faster, there is a miscalculation or a disorganization of bricks. There is a miscalculation, a disorganization when you're doing things fast, when you're in panic mode, essentially. Okay, psoriasis is a panic situation. It's a panic situation for your skin cells because the skin cells are now working very fast to ensure that there's enough barrier, enough protection on your skin so you don't get attacked by a threat. You don't get, from a physical level, there is stress in the environment, there's a trigger in the environment, there is some level of perceived threat, which your brain justifies, and it tells the immune cells to tell the skin cells to work faster. And instead of taking a month of maintenance, they take 3 to 4 days, which is why there's a cluster of skin patches and redness because of the disorganization and the dislocation of the skin cell building up, or the speed of the skin cells building up. Hyperkeratosis or proliferation of keratinocytes. Okay, that keratinocytes are skin cells. Accumulation of skin cells, accumulation of bricks. These warriors go crazy, they hallucinate. So they hallucinate and they don't really know what's going on. Okay, they don't really know what the threat is. It's like in their minds there is some black magic done and they are perceiving a false alarm or a false threat. And they're going and confusing the cells. This is the whole process of autoimmune inflammation and proliferation of keratinocytes, which is your skin cells, okay? So inflammation is essentially redness, essentially the body trying to protect itself, which is why there is a level of heat increase in the area of psoriasis, and it's mainly around these parts. So that's a simple understanding of psoriasis. In Ayurveda, psoriasis is actually linked to all the doshas, but mainly Pitta dosha, which is the heat fire element. And now we'll understand what are the triggers. Why is there why are the blood cells scared? It's quite a difficult condition. It's a chronic condition to really understand and get your head around. So bear with me as we go through step by step on first understanding the triggers in the environment and then understanding the functions of the skin. So as per medical research and understanding, there are triggers in our environment, false alarms or threats that set the immune cells off. And the triggers include high stress, also infections, skin injuries, cuts, wounds, etc. The weather. So when it's cold, when it's dry season, your skin cells usually hate it and they itch more. Lifestyle factors like alcohol and smoking. Smoking, very common for psoriasis patients to drink alcohol because of high stress, and the skin issue also further triggers that as a flow-on effect of drinking more alcohol and smoking because It's stressful. And then we have medications, as we always do. So malarian medications, blood pressure medications, lithium-containing medications can all make the psoriasis flare up. So these are the main triggers. There is also things that happen with psoriasis that are commonly studied as anxiety and depression, okay? So keep that in mind, anxiety and depression, because we'll discuss mental reasons for that, which are linked to psoriasis. And essentially, it's like a loop. So when you have psoriasis, right, you get triggered because symptoms include itching, there is pain, redness, and there is silvery, scaly scales, like scaly situation going on. There's sometimes joint pain as well. And because of itching, right, there can be bleeding because you can actually scrape off and dig deep in the wounds or in the scaly areas, which is the large amounts of skin cells cluttered in one area. So if you itch that too much, it can cause a little bit of bleeding, okay? These are the symptoms of psoriasis, and what usually happens in areas lower back, joints, and knees, elbows, and hair. And it's a very chronic condition. Now, from understanding all of this, the question that should come to your mind is, where does all of this begin? Like, who is the person that is making the immune cells confused? Or who is the person that is hitting the panic button, right? Panic button in your body to increase these symptoms, the itching, right? Who is the controller? And the controller is the amygdala. Amygdala is a part of the brain, which I'll show you. It's, you can say it's like a person who switches the panic button on, okay, when there's a threat in your environment. So, amygdala, okay. This is the brain, and just imagine somewhere in the center over here, there is the amygdala, which is essentially threat detection mechanism. So we'll go threat detection, and it can also read faces and detect them as threats or like ensure that you feel safe. So there's face detection, there's threat detection, and this is the place where your nervous system gets switched up. So your nervous system switch, sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system, your stress response and your fight or flight response and your rest and digest response, it all comes from this area. As soon as there's a line in front of you, amygdala will press the panic button and a surge of blood will go through your body as adrenaline. Cortisol will rise because your sympathetic nervous system is turned on. And that's the job of the amygdala, to ensure that you're safe, essentially able to survive. And it can also act like a strong glue for emotions with specific memories. So if you have specific experiences in your life, let's say if you have trauma in your life, that trauma and the feeling, the memory and the feeling attached together, that's amygdala's job as well. So amygdala essentially is a place where there's threat detection, there's the switch for the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight switch, and also there is emotional memory glue attachment. And also there is face reading. If there are people around you, you can pick up social cues, and amygdala can kind of see who is angry, who is a threat, who is nice, etc. So it's like a CCTV camera inside your brain that can see and ensure that you are always safe. These are the functions of the amygdala, and the reason why I'm talking about the amygdala is because your brain is detecting false alarms, an illusion, a maya. There is a false trigger in your reality that is constantly telling amygdala to hit the panic button every day. Something has hijacked the amygdala, essentially, and it's sending false alarms to the immune system, causing the autoimmune condition to happen. That's what the amygdala does. And there's essentially a malfunctioning of the amygdala. There's a hijack. Now, we'll understand why there's a hijack later on. But as soon as there is stress in the environment, as soon as there is some level of, for example, medications, the triggers that we discussed earlier, your amygdala will press the button and it will switch. Your response will switch. You'll go into stress and you'll start experiencing more symptoms of the itching. Now let's move on to the functions of the skin. And I'll show you how the skin looks like as well. It's essentially got 3 layers. Okay, so you have the epidermis, you have the dermis, you have the hypodermis. Okay, so epidermis. So this is the epidermis, this is the dermis, and this is the hypodermis. Now, these 2 sections are the ones that are mainly involved in psoriasis. There is a proliferation increase in the speed of the skin cells, keratinocytes, which are here. So keratinocytes, skin cells. And what each of these functions of the skin layer do is, here we have fat cells, which take care of warmth and cushioning of your skin. Cushion. And then over here in the dermis area, we have collagen and elastin, which ensure, and blood vessels, which dictate thermoregulation, so temperature control, and elasticity. Temperature control, elasticity, essentially. And the health, the aging of the skin, it's in the dermis. And now in the epidermis is skin cells, keratinocytes, melanocytes, and these cells essentially help with vitamin D synthesis. So vitamin D, when there is a projection of sunlight onto your skin epidermis area turns that sunlight into vitamin D for your skin to use, so nutrients. So keratinocytes essentially do vitamin D synthesis, and melanocytes do protection of the UV rays, okay? So melanocytes, sun protection, and keratinocytes do vitamin D synthesis. There is also a moisture and water renewal, a water barrier. So essentially water doesn't enter your body, there is a water barrier. As you can see, it is like, apologies for my handwriting, but as you can see, there is protection from sunlight UV rays, there is thermoregulation with the blood vessels, there is vitamin D synthesis, and all in all, your skin is like a protective immune defense to bacteria and viruses. It's the most, it's like your whole entire skin is your shield, okay? It ensures that bacteria and viruses that are coming in from the environment get beaten or get attacked by the immune cells sitting in your skin. Okay? They ensure that the bacteria and viruses die. And then there is also the sensation of touch. So any pain, pressure, tell your brain, it's like your brain's eyes, they tell your brain that either you need to remove your hand away or you need to touch more, etc. So these are the functions of the layers and the functions of your skin. This is an understanding of the functions of the skin. The reason why we understand that is so that we can understand psoriasis and what happens when there's an abnormal functioning of the skin. So let's go step by step. Hypodermis is not really involved, so you don't have to really worry about that. Dermis, we have blood vessels. There is a multiplication of blood vessels because, again, the immune cells are telling the blood vessels to expand. There is inflammation and there is redness because of the expansion of the blood vessels, essentially. Because the immune cells are telling the cells in the dermis to multiply, to increase. And same goes for epidermis, right? Temperature control fails, and hence there is a rise in heat. So whenever you touch the psoriasis area, it's usually hot. And then we have the epidermis area where there is moisture control, right? And there is water barrier. That also becomes dry, unable to keep up with the cell overproduction and unable to maintain the water barrier in your skin. So when there is air passing through, it dries up your skin faster. And because of this, even though immune cells are trying to find and they're confused in this area, immunoregulation is not at its best. Like there is a dysregulation of immune cells, right? Dysregulation and no immunomodulation. Okay? So the immune cells, your immune system can't modulate, which is why there's an increase in the risk of infection and the risk of bacteria viruses hitting your skin area and making it more vulnerable to environment and the triggers in the environment. Because it just keeps getting worse, as you can see. And it just keeps irritating and it's annoying because you're stuck in a loop and it's so hard to get rid of. Even if you put anti-steroidal cream on your psoriasis, it will come back. It's just a temporary relief. It will come back. And that's the whole understanding of the function of the skin. And when there's abnormality, which is psoriasis, what happens then, right? There's a buildup of the epidermis and dermis area. Blood vessels dilate, right? There's a temperature control fails, and then you have moisture levels drop. And when the air passes through that area, it becomes even more dry, irritant, exposure to viruses and bacteria, risk of infection. So in nature, hyperkeratosis is essentially a defense mechanism. It's there for protection. And you can see this in wombats, dogs, and wild fox. So what happens is when there is a parasite, there's microscopic mites. When they go into the skin and attach onto the skin looking for food, reproduction, like a home pretty much, in the animal's body then increases cell production in that particular area to keep the mites out. So mites. Hyperkeratosis is a defense mechanism as per nature. Okay. Now I'll show you in what other creatures there is hyperkeratosis. So oysters and pearls. Mechanism is exactly the same. Parasite or a piece of irritating debris gets inside the oyster's shell, which triggers the oyster cannot spit the irritant out, so its immune system gets panicked, and there's an overproduction of the shiny material that lines its shell, essentially. And we have the same in oak trees, massive hard woody lumps on the leaves or branches called galls. An insect lays an egg, there's a trigger, and you have the tree rapidly building a thick woody quarantine zone to isolate the threat and stop any infection or damage from spreading to the rest of the tree. Its foreign invasion of a smaller creature is attached, and then they're looking for home, food, warmth, and reproduction, which is why hyperkeratosis is a natural phenomena in our body as well. And there's also other scenarios where hyperkeratosis is actually normal, and it's seen in the body where, for example, when you get a thick callus on your heel from walking barefoot, that is hyperkeratosis. When a guitar player gets thick pads on their fingertips, that's hyperkeratosis. Warts and corns are also forms, and that is essentially natural. But when there is itching, there is immune malfunctioning, and there is inflammation, then you have psoriasis. Now, when I was studying this and understanding it, I always look at ancient civilization and what they looked at the skin as, right? And that should be the question that should also come to your mind. Across all civilizations, whether there was Ayurvedic texts, ancient India, whether it was ancient Egypt, whether it was Chinese medicine, they all connected, or Greek, Hippocrates and Galen, who were the fathers of natural medicine in the Greek world, they all looked at skin as an inside-out understanding. So what that means is, what is ever happening is inside the body, that is what's happening on the outside of the body. As above, so below, right? As for the mind, as for the body, then yin and yang. Every ancient civilization looked at the skin as a symptom, as a production of something that is happening inside the body. Each culture had its linking of the skin to blood, plasma, the liver, lungs, okay? These were mainly the areas where they kind of focused on, right? If the skin is getting a condition, it's usually in the gut, okay, which everything starts from, right? It's usually within this area, or these are the causes of the skin. But again, this is very objective, right? This is also limiting. Okay? This can give you clues, but again, why is there an issue with the blood? Why is there an issue with the plasma? Why is there an issue with the liver, the lungs, the gut? That is a real question. Ancient civilization or Ayurvedic texts or natural medicine texts, they can tell you that this is the cause, right? But why is there an issue over here? That's my thinking. And then again, this is just like a result, right? But what is actually going on over here that is leading to the skin issue? One thing you have to know over here is that skin always sheds. Okay, this is an understanding. Dead skin cells will always shed. That was a simple understanding of the ancient cultures, and they ensured that there was a good amount of scraping on the skin, right? Whether it was in Egypt, whether it was in Ayurveda, they used to do skin scraping to get rid of the dead skin cells to ensure there is a good renewal process, to support the body's renewal process, essentially. They oiled the skin, they used milk. Lactic acid essentially keeps a good moisture level. It draws out bacteria, it keeps the skin healthy and clean. Across all cultures, milk, oil, herbs, again, scraping was done on the skin, okay? And I'll tell you more about it as we go to the remedies of psoriasis, but this is just a summary of what ancient cultures used and thought of the skin. Now let's come to the final and the most fun part, which is figuring out why is there an issue. And I'll tell you a story of Plato and the Allegory of the cave. It's a simple philosophy, Plato's philosophy, who was a philosopher in ancient Greece. He developed this theory of illusion, right? And I'll tell you what it is. It's simply a few people who are caged up over here, right? There is a bunch of people over here. There's a wall over here, okay, and they're in a cave. Okay, there's a cave. And over here at the wall, there are people who bring big objects. They like stand up with big objects, like you can say animals, different shapes of animals, different shapes of like paper, etc. And they hold it up over here. And in the middle, there is fire. So all of this is fire. Imagine a massive fire. There's a brick wall. These people are not facing over here. They're facing over here. Their eyes are looking at a wall over here. These people are looking over here. What they see is a massive shadow of what these people are projecting. And then there is like a ladder over here that goes out from the cave into the sunlight and into the moonlight, or the world, okay, the world around them. So that's Plato's Allegory of the cave. And all this means, and the reason why I tell you and I explain to you this psoriasis understanding, we'll make that connection in fact later on, but these people believe that they are seeing massive monsters, okay? So just imagine like massive shapes, massive monsters, which is being projected from the fire like a shadow. It's a projection. These people see monsters and they get scared. It's like a massive shadow that they cannot get rid of, right? And they see that and they have anxiety, they have depression, they constantly fear what the monster is going to do to them, and they can never get rid of it. And these people over here, they keep moving line by line every single day, showing just paper objects, moving paper objects across the fire. That's all they're doing. And as you can see, there is a movement of monsters then that these people see. And all of this depicts Maya. Maya means illusion in Sanskrit terms. All of this to them is Maya. It's illusion. It is a shadow that they assume or they see as something dangerous, threat. They fear it every single day. It's the same in psoriasis. And I'll make that connection. So these guys, they're chained up, right? They cannot move. They're sitting in one spot. They're caged up. You're caged up by your psoriasis. It doesn't move. It's in one location. Yes, you can have it in different locations, but it doesn't move from there. It's actually debilitating. And it's very irritating because it's happening every day. There's a monster that is coming every day. And Plato suggests that it's these people who are manipulating the movement of the shadows are your desires in the world, right? Your desire for status, wealth, it's your greed. They also depict the reason why you chase status, right? Is because of society and the hierarchy in society. Everybody's chasing money, etc. for survival. And they've made money a tool for survival, right? But you can grow something in your garden that will, like, it doesn't need money, right? It just needs water and it needs, but there is a hierarchy that puts an illusion in the middle of our physical being, making money the main object of our life and us chasing that for survival. But survival can happen without money, without this hierarchy. You know, like, you don't eat money, essentially, that's what I'm trying to say. Okay, so there's an illusion in the middle because of societal hierarchy. And then there is public manipulation. So people in power, they manipulate the public, whether it's through the politicians or the government, etc., the media. There's manipulation of people, of how they think. Okay, that's also an illusion. It's not real, as per Plato. And Plato also believes that unexamined culture or religion, or not questioning your elders or people above you, and not questioning that and taking everything for granted in terms of believing it at face value, that's also an illusion. That's also Maya. Okay? So all these things around you which are illusions in your mind, right? Wealth, fame, public manipulation through media, right? News, right? And you are made to believe that these are real. According to Plato's beliefs, the way to escape, the way to for these people to actually get free out of the cave into sunlight is by dragging them and moving them around. So as soon as they look around, as soon as they turn around, they'll see that it's an illusion. It's Maya. It's made up. It's not real. The monsters over here, they were all made up, and it was just a projection. As soon as they turn around, right? But that turning around happens from a traumatic experience or a big learning in life. There are a few things that, like someone cannot really turn their face around quickly, as per Plato, but we'll actually understand that through today's condition is how you can be free from this cave. And this will make you free from psoriasis. And I'll show you why. In psoriasis, there is a decrease in your body of serotonin and melatonin, which is why you have anxiety and depression and a lack of sleep regulation. So patients with psoriasis also have sleep issues. And the reason why is because you're in a cave. You're in a made-up cave, which is dark. You're in darkness. And I'll give you an example, a simple example. If you don't really understand this allegory of the cave analogy, I'll give you a simple example of a snake and a rope. So if, let's say you're a person and you're in the forest, you're in the jungle, and you step on a rope, okay, but because in the past you have stepped on a snake before, you perceive this rope as a snake. And every rope you step on in the forest, you perceive it as a snake. And you get scared every single time you hit it. You try and escape it, but you keep stepping on the ropes every single day. You keep getting irritated every single day. There's always pain every single day. There's an illusion of something that is not real, which is the snake. But then someone comes up with a light and shines the light on to the rope. The snake turns out to be a rope for you. So this is a simple understanding of how we as humans perceive things that are not real. And my argument to you, or my understanding that connects psoriasis to this, is in your life, there has been a moment in your life which you have, through your amygdala, perceived as a threat. Okay? And that is when you were vulnerable, you were being used, essentially. There was a moment in your life where you were vulnerable and you were taken advantage of. Okay? This will all connect. Like, you have to stay with me. This will all connect. I'm planting this analogies in your mind is because these analogies will shape, and it will be like an explosion of understanding. So there was a moment in time when you were vulnerable, and then you were taken advantage of. And from that day onwards, your amygdala registers vulnerability to being taken advantage of. It associates that to that. And whenever you want to feel vulnerable, whenever you want to feel your emotions out, like you want to express yourself, vulnerability is essentially expression of emotions. It's being human. It's being okay that you're not good enough, or that you don't know everything, right? So there was a moment in time in your life that depicted vulnerability, but you were taken advantage of. So what you did was you went on and used your ego as protection, okay? So ego came into the picture as a defense mechanism to build up fortresses around your emotions, fortress around your mind or emotions. And now you're trapped in a cave which is designed by your ego, which is defending you from letting out your emotions because you were taken advantage of one time. Every time you're being vulnerable, you feel that there is someone going to take advantage of you, so you don't be vulnerable. And you don't express yourself. And that is the cause of psoriasis. And the reason why that is because if you look at symptoms of people who guard themselves with their ego, right? They've got a lot of, they build their life up with status, with ego, with I know everything type, situation or personality, right? I know everything. These are the people that can't really unlearn. They can't really open up. They can't really express themselves. And guess what the body does then? In order to defend your emotions, you become irritated, you become angry. Anger is an expression of lack of vulnerability, okay? So if you express yourself through anger because you can't be vulnerable. If you're vulnerable, you would be cool, right? You would have less heat in your body. You would be easy. You would let go. You would know that you don't know everything. And if, like, I know this will trigger, like if you have psoriasis, I know this will trigger you because this is hitting straight at the core problem that is in your mind, which is your ego, which is your illusion, okay? Your ego is your illusion. In Ayurveda, in ancient Indian culture, we have the third eye, okay? Third eye is also depicted in Egyptian culture. A lot of cultures have the third eye. It's known as the pineal gland, okay? Now, this is the connection coming together. There is a connection of the pineal gland to ego. Pineal gland is where your melatonin is produced. So in your brain, there is a pineal gland right over here. It's very small. In Egyptian culture, it's known as the eye of Horus, the moonlight eye of Horus. In Indian culture, it is depicted by Shiva, who has a third eye. And Shiva, the third eye, is known to be the destroyer of Maya, or destroyer of ego. So the third eye is the destroyer of ego. The pineal gland, the reason why it's a destroyer of ego, the darkness in your body, the lack of vulnerability, and this connects to why people with psoriasis have less melatonin in their body, because the pineal gland is not working properly to produce enough melatonin. Melatonin is one of the greatest antioxidants, one of the greatest anti-inflammatories in the body. And in fact, I'll make this connection to you. When you have psoriasis and you apply melatonin on the skin, guess what happens? It gets relieved. There's research to show topical application, 5% melatonin, on psoriasis can really help reduce the symptoms, the itching, etc. So imagine if you had enough melatonin, which is produced through your pineal gland, and it literally, like I mentioned in earlier classes, there are two hormones in your body and melatonin. Serotonin depicts the sun, melatonin depicts the moon. When you're in darkness, when you're about to go to sleep, that's when melatonin is produced. It helps you sleep, it helps you calm down. But if you're in a high stress scenario, right, if the amygdala is constantly pressing the false alarm in your body and you have autoimmune condition, your cortisol levels will naturally be high. Because of cortisol, because of high cortisol levels, melatonin levels drop. You can't really sleep when you're in stress mode, when you're in survival mode. Melatonin also means the moon. It's a cooling energy in your body, as well as serotonin. Now, serotonin is in daylight. When you eat enough proteins like eggs, turkey, pumpkin seeds, leafy green vegetables, they all produce good amounts of tryptophan, which is an amino acid that converts to serotonin in your gut. 90% of serotonin is produced in your gut. So if your gut is not working properly, as you mentioned earlier, in the depiction of ancient cultures, the gut being the core of psoriasis, right? If there's not enough production of serotonin in your gut, you don't have enough production of melatonin, because during nighttime, serotonin converts to melatonin, okay? Your body has photoreceptors. Through photoreceptors, it can tell whether it's dark or light. But guess what? In psoriasis, you're in the cave. You're in the darkness of your ego. You're in the illusion that what you believe, which is you believe and you have a rigid viewpoint of the world, that being vulnerable is a bad thing. That's the illusion in your mind. And you build a fortress, your skin keeps building up the fortress, right? Your mind is building the fortress, skin cells are proliferating, this is a connection, to defend your ego. But guess what? The immune cells don't know what is happening. They're blinded, right? They're confused. They're thinking, if this is not real, then why is this person being feared? Why does this person have anxiety? Why is this person not being able to express themselves? You see this conflict, right? There is a conflict in the body of these two things. That ego is not real. It's a projection of the mind. It's a construct of the mind that you have built up, a belief system that you have built up that being vulnerable is bad. Okay? But it's not. That's the truth. You have to express yourself. The outcome, which is a person who's going to take advantage of you or not, that's completely out of your hand. That outcome, which is a rope, whether that snake is going to turn out as a rope or not, that's completely out of your hand. You just have to shine a light on it, right? You have to shine a light through your pineal gland, through your third eye, through the amygdala sensing, right? The amygdala is your threat detection. It senses faces, and that's where the false alarm is hit. So if the pineal gland doesn't have enough cooling systems, right, is not perceiving daylight and night time, is not perceiving that, there's going to be chaos in your body. There's going to be a miscommunication of cells in your body. If you're in a cave almost all your life and you're caged up and you never see the sun and the moon, you're not going to have enough serotonin, melatonin. You're not going to have enough light in your life. And this is why sunlight is so important for psoriasis. When you're in the sun, psoriasis can actually be healed by sun's light. There's a reduction in the itchiness, in the redness, in the pain through sunlight. It's simply telling your body and your mind is you're in darkness. It's a very micro analysis. If you look at it from the body's perspective, the body's telling you to be vulnerable. But because you're not vulnerable, it expresses vulnerability through psoriasis. And guess what that means? It means whenever you go out into the public and they ask you, why are you itching yourself, right? It's an indication of you. It's an indication for you to open up. That is the beauty of the body. You have a condition that is wanting you to open up, and it's itchy, it's painful, it's telling you to express yourself, but your ego won't allow that, because your ego thinks that being vulnerable is bad, which is why you'll be in a cave all your life and you keep defending it through this assumption, through this illusion, through Maya, right? And hence you won't be able to fall asleep easily. You won't be able to, you can't live a happy life if you're not vulnerable. You need to express how can you express happiness if you can't express sadness, Yes, you have anxiety. Yes, you have fears within you, but it's okay, right? It's okay to be human. It's okay to express. So autoimmune conditions are essentially an internal war in your body and your emotions. Your body, through psoriasis, it's telling you to express yourself. It's in places where you can't move. When there is mobility, that's where it is. When there is movement of hair, movement of joints, lower back movement areas, that's where psoriasis is. It's because your emotions are stagnant. You see? So how do you help psoriasis? That's the next question. How do you become vulnerable? You become vulnerable through talking, through communication. This Maya and unlearning Maya, unlearning your ego, it comes through expressing yourself more. However you feel in whatever areas, and I know it's very hard, right? This is a chronic condition. It's difficult. And the reason why it's difficult is because for the longest time, you've had difficulty expressing your emotions. Okay? When you express your emotions, you feel light. And the best way to do that is through communication. It's through talking. Whether it's going through a therapist, whether it's talking to your family, having dinner table conversations, right? There is no TV or there is no device around your table, right? You're talking to someone about how you feel, how the day was, So your defenses go down, okay? Your symptoms go down, right? The anger, which is in your skin, it comes down. Yeah, this is all anger. Itching, pain, redness, pitta. It's all anger. It's irritation. Your body's it's irritated. Your body's trying to express, but it can't express because your mind has developed an ego that vulnerability is bad because someday you were taken advantage of because of that. Realize that you need to sleep better, okay? The way you sleep better is, first of all, you shouldn't have your device 90 minutes before bed, okay? I'm telling you how to help melatonin increase in your body. You need good amounts of protein in your body so that the serotonin can turn to melatonin at night. You need to ensure that you don't use blue light or devices 90 minutes before bed. You need to fast before bed. So have a 3-hour gap between eating and sleeping to help melatonin production. And you need to have a cool body temperature when you're sleeping. So you can have a hot shower, like a warm shower before bed, 90 minutes or 30 minutes or 40 minutes before bed. When you go to bed, your body temperature will drop and you'll be able to sleep better. And in the morning when you wake up, don't use your phone. Ensure that you get sun rays on your eyes. That helps the photoreceptors increase serotonin production in your body. Okay? So ensure that you go to sleep at the same time, wake up at the same time. Circadian rhythm balance is very important. And also cold exposure. So if you can do cold plunges are good. But if you don't have a cold plunge, you can simply do hot and cold showers, switch it up when you're showering. Do hot water first, then cold water, then hot water, then cold water to finish. Do that, 2 to 3 times, and then your body will ensure that there is thermoregulation. When there are low signs of melatonin and serotonin, you essentially have immunodysregulation. That is the cause of the autoimmune condition, right? There is a dysregulation of immune cells. And the only reason why is because you have low serotonin and you have low melatonin. Melatonin helps with neuroprotection. Serotonin helps with memory and cognitive function. So it's essentially psoriasis comes down to these two, moonlight and sunlight hormones. So this is what you do, and this is what recommended to help with psoriasis. Firstly, you ensure that you have enough fiber in your diet. Okay, there's good amounts of elimination that is happening, and you're not constipated essentially. Reduce sugar, fats, which are unhealthy, animal fats, dairy, alcohol, okay, smoking, you need to reduce that. For supplements, you can take magnesium, chromium, vitamin D, and omega-3 fatty acids. And there's one really good effective supplement that has been clinically trialed really well is Pycnological. And for herbs, you have sarsaparilla, berberine, and milk thistle. For topical support, you can use, again, melatonin can be used. Use milk instead of soap. So don't use soap, just use small amounts, like 15 ml of milk. Shower it on your body. Sour milk was used back in ancient Egypt. Even in India, they use milk even today. When you go to temples, the Shiva ling is showered with milk. And then you have aloe vera gel, cucumber gel, topical vitamin D. And there's also indigo, king dye, indigo naturalis, which can really help with reducing the symptoms of psoriasis. Indigo is like a pigment, and it's found in a herb called indigo tinctora. But indigo naturalis is essentially a byproduct of indigo tinctora. Indigo naturalis is specifically for psoriasis. You can still use indigo tinctora, which is commonly used as a hair dye to keep the hair black, but that would be less effective than the indigo naturalis because it's a more concentrated powder of the indigo. And then you have things like sunbathing, Dead Sea bathing, and meditation to reduce stress. These are the things that can support you with psoriasis. But if you're not vulnerable, none of these things are as effective as they should be. These things will only work if you learn vulnerability, if you learn to let go, and if you learn to realize that your ego is an illusion. It's a defense mechanism. It's not real. What's real are your emotions. Ego is like darkness. You're in the allegory of the cave. Okay, you're in darkness. You're in a cave. There is no sunlight. There's no moonlight. There is no serotonin. There's no melatonin. And you're stuck. You're caged up. Psoriasis, in one area, it's caged up. And every time someone asks you about it, it's asking you to open up to someone. It's allowing you to express yourself completely. So if you express yourself in the first place, if you have dinner table conversations, if you try your best to talk. Through that talking, through communication, and do not judge the other person, how they will take your response, okay? That is an outcome you can't control. What you have in control is your emotions, and if you're emotionally expressive, you'll be much lighter. And just forgive the person. Forgive the person in your past that took advantage of you. That is the best way to let go of the trauma that you're holding, that you're using as a defense mechanism to ensure that you don't express yourself emotionally. So forgive that person and move forth. Okay, that was ages ago, whenever that was. Psoriasis takes a bit of a time to develop, right? So I believe probably ages ago. Let go, just forgive and allow yourself. That person probably is disappeared from your life anyway. So he has or she has, because of your lack of learning or your knowing, they have created a psoriasis condition in you and they've left your life. So don't blame them, just forgive them and move forth by communicating to the people around you and communicating even to nature. If you communicate to a plant, if you don't want to communicate to people around you, if you don't trust them, go out into nature, just talk to a tree. Just talk to the sea, into the ocean, into the sky. Nature is also a vibrational energy. It's energy. It's living. You're in a living cosmos. Okay, everything is alive. You're not in your mind. You're not, a cage. Go outside more. See how birds express themselves. Notice how dogs bark. Notice how leaves move, how leaves are formed. Notice the beauty of nature. That will free your mind of the illusion, and the illusion that is so big that makes you think that you're some big person that can control, that can go through life not being emotional. That will shatter your belief system. If you just stand in a place where there is mountains around you, right? Go into a place where there's mountains around you, realize how small you are in this world. But if you're constantly caged up, you're in a cave, you think you own the cave, you think your cave is the world, right? The cave is very small. The world is so big. There are many people around you who are loving, who are compassionate. Nature, in fact, nature is loving and compassionate. Nature gives so much to us. It makes us breathe. It ensures that we stay alive, we stay healthy, right? Psoriasis, from another perspective, is a way to express your emotions, which you're not doing at the first place. So have a great rest of your day. So I hope you enjoyed this session. Thank you for watching. I'm sorry if I did trigger you. And I'll see you in the next session for anxiety.